schools is this nation's best.
Ukraine's mothers, daughters, teachers, politicians, beauty queens, now on the front lines defending their country under siege. And there is Anastasia Lena, a former Miss Grand Ukraine. Photos of her on Instagram in fatigues, rifle in hand. Underneath, patriotic hashtags.
Damn.
Miss Ukraine with a rifle, defending her homeland. Is there anything more inspiring than that? It'd be more inspiring if it was real. It wasn't. It was fake. Miss Ukraine was not defending her homeland. That wasn't a rifle. It was an airsoft gun. So the whole thing was not a news story, though you read it as such. It was a propaganda shoot. It was meant to deceive you. It was meant to make you want war with Russia, sympathize with one side over the other. It works. That's why they do it. It's why the tech companies have censored so many news sites recently, including from Russia, but not exclusively from Russia. Now, we're supposed to think this is a victory over Putin or something. But a victory for what? Less information? Fewer perspectives? If getting to the truth was the point of the exercise, we as American citizens would be able to read whatever we wanted to read. That was the rule for centuries in this country. It no longer is, because truth is no longer the point.
No, it's not.
Instead, Twitter and Facebook are proudly censoring any information that might, quote, undermine trust in the Ukrainian government. Really? Since when are we required to trust the Ukrainian government or any government? Don't ask. By the way, over the weekend, because everything in America is unintentionally hilarious now, the New York Times attacked Vladimir Putin for censorship. Turns out he engages in censorship, tries to control what his people can read. Lost in the relentless focus on war in Ukraine, by the way, is any perspective about the world or war, which is always lacking in D.C., but never more so than now. The fighting in Ukraine is terrible. Of course, you're seeing it happen. No decent person could fail to be moved by the images. But it's not unique. It's not the only war in recent memory or even currently in progress right now. Look. Many thousands died in the 2020 Nagorno-Karabakh war. That was between Azerbaijan and Armenia. Ever heard of it? It ended less than a year and a half ago. No coverage. There's been a gruesome war underway in Ethiopia for a couple of years now. It's, again, in progress as we speak. Tens of thousands of women have been raped by militiamen, many of them intentionally infected with AIDS. Can it get worse than that? How many people have died in the war in Ethiopia? We don't really know, because no one in our media cares enough to keep track. It's just Ethiopia. We do know that hundreds of thousands of people, mostly civilians, have died in the war in Yemen. It's a war the Biden administration has continued to fund. It doesn't get a lot of attention. It's just Yemen. Who cares? All human life is equal. All of us are equal in the eyes of God. The death of someone in Ukraine is exactly equivalent to the death of someone in Yemen in its importance, period.
For ethnic diversity, but this is just pandering.
But hardest of all to ignore, though our media have pulled it off and ignored it, is the civil war that's underway 100 yards from El Paso, Texas right now. The Mexican drug war. That's what we call it. It's likely killed more than 100,000 people. In 2019 alone, close to 10,000 Mexican citizens just disappeared, most of them young men. More journalists are murdered in Mexico every year than in any other country in the world. You're seeing pictures on your screen right now of that war. They're horrifying. We're keeping the bad ones off the screen. Trust us. They're awful. But it's not a crisis. It's totally normal, says the Biden administration. Open the southern border. The border we care about is Ukraine's. Now, Republicans in Washington, to their eternal shame, have no problem with any of this. In fact, many of them are more for war with Russia than Joe Biden seems to be. That is a disgrace.
Was that a fart? I don't know.
It will hurt them in the midterms. It will hurt them on some deeper level because it does not serve the interests of this country. A war fought on behalf of democracy that ignores the will of the country fighting it. At some point soon we'll explain exactly what's going on here. We're out of time for tonight, but it's enough to know Republicans are not representing their voters when they move to a position that's way more warlike than Joe Biden's, when they embrace the lunacy that could really hurt this country. That aren't representing people like Bryce Mitchell. Bryce Mitchell seems like a Republican voter. He's a 27-year-old mixed martial arts fighter. He's a cattle farmer from Cabot, Arkansas. Really? There's a lot of forgotten little towns in this country, and Braddock, Pennsylvania is definitely one of them. It's only 11 miles outside Pittsburgh, but Braddock is basically empty at this point. Only 1,700 people live there. That's down from a population of more than 18,000 during the Second World War. Braddock is now so underpopulated that you can buy a 4-bedroom home there with a 2-car garage right in the middle of town for $3,000.
That doesn't make sense.